Okay, so I will be discussing the two articles that I did my annotated bibliography on. And I picked these articles because I have a strong interest in criminal justice in the prison system, and just I'm helping that particular population. Excuse me. So my first article is called "Toxic Masculinity as a Barrier to Mental Health Treatment in Prison." So this article, it was a really interesting article. Um, it just showed that it just discussed about the behaviors that men exhibit on the outside and like normal society, like trying to behaviors that are described as masculine behaviors, such as just trying to like prove themselves, or trying being aggressive, or just possessive, different um, things that you would think of a typical man, that different behaviors that are described as man behaviors, masculine behaviors. Um, this article says that when you're inside of a prison as an inmate, these behaviors only intensify because they're used as ways of survival instead of just your normal behaviors that you may exhibit just because those are just your personality traits. Your personality traits, when locked up in a prison, become more intensified and a means of survival. And those means of survival, those toxic behaviors, aggression, possessiveness, only are used are considered when trying to receive therapy in a group setting, are barriers, because these men don't want to seem vulnerable, because when you're seen as vulnerable in prison, especially in front of a group of people, a group of your peers who see you outside of this therapeutic session, it can make you look weak and vulnerable and put your life at risk if you're saying things that may make you seem as like a good target. So that's what the article was saying, that male toxicity is a barrier, but at the same time, if you're going to be a group therapist, you have to understand the ways of the prison system and the norms that the men in that system go through in order to be able to connect and with your client and establish a safe space. So it's pretty the male toxicity and the barriers are known to if they're known to the therapist, then you'll be able to be more effective as a therapist. Because if you just go in and you just try to treat someone who is in the prison system as if they're out in normal society, you won't be able to connect the way that you would to just someone in normal society, because it's a whole different world inside of a prison. I think that this article is very useful to me because I am very interested in this population, and I do want to be able to work and run groups within a, a correctional facility, or with individuals who have been newly released in like a halfway home, or just run groups with people who are in this population. And I would have to be able to understand that being in this system, your way of thinking and your way of life is different than mine, very much so. And not just because that you're male, or not just because that you are older or whatever. You have a different way of thinking because you're conditioned on be conditioned in being more violent, and exposing yourself to violence, and exposing yourself to the different interactions, the different aggressive interactions in a prison system. So I will have to be able to be patient and have my client feel comfortable in order, and have established a safe space so they would be able to be like, okay, I can share with this person, and I can share around these group of people, and not feel that I'm going to pay for it later, or I'm being weak, or I'm not being a dominant male. So my next article was the effectiveness of art therapy in reducing depression in prison populations. So I really liked this article. It was about so it was pretty much about how depression is very prominent in the prison system, and it's one of the most prevalent diagnoses in the prison system. So it actually said around 90% of prisoners exhibit symptoms of depression, but not all of them are diagnosable. But just being, so this article was a study on how group art therapy worked in the prison system for depression, in contrast to a group cognitive behavioral therapy session where you're communicating verbally and expressing your feelings, and just, making yourself feel more vulnerable in the eyes of someone who is within the prison system. So the study was, there were 48 prisoners, and they all suffered from an Axis 1 diagnosis, according to the article. And so they were separated in groups of 6, groups of 8, and they did 2 therapy sessions per week, over a 4-week period. So before they started the therapy, they were asked to draw a picture of a man or a person picking an apple from a tree. And then after they finished the therapy session, they were asked to draw a picture of a person picking an apple from a tree. So in order to determine whether or not the therapy was working, they utilized, it's called the FEATS, FEATS scaling system, and that is just a system that qualifies, that it's a system that makes art measurable. So you measure color, vibrancy, just the different types of lines and curves in the picture, and just how much detail is used. And based off of just going to these art therapy sessions and not having to express themselves through words, but through their pictures, and the different art the different arts and crafts that they did during during the groups. They all, like, nearly all of the prisoners did much, like, symptoms of depression were treated and better. So they improved. I really liked this article because I really never thought of using art as a means of treatment in a prison system. I do understand that, like, a lot of people in prison enjoy, like, poetry and rap and, music, but I never thought of just simple arts and crafts or painting as a way of expression for those within the prison system. And I think that this is a great way to combat the barriers that were previously mentioned. And it's also a way that if you can't connect with someone using their words, or someone who has a disability and really can't communicate as well, or just doesn't understand the certain things that you might be saying or trying to communicate to them, I think that using art is just an awesome way. And I just think it's going to have to be placed in whatever facility that I open, because it's extremely useful and helpful. So that was my articles, and I really enjoyed them, and I hope that you enjoy reading them as well.